Alright, so the last part of our strategy implementation content that we're going to look at today are the policies and procedures that companies can put in place that will facilitate good strategy execution. Now there's a few that we're going to look at as we'll outline on the next slide, but why are they important? First of all, they provide top-down guidance about how certain things need to be done. So they outline clearly the expectations and the way that things will be done within an organization, particularly in relation to that strategy, execution and implementation. It also helps enforce consistency in terms of how strategy critical activities are performed, as well as promotes the creation of a work climate that facilitates good strategy execution. As I say, there are five policies and procedures with regard to strategy implementation that we're going to look at today. They are benchmarking best practices, TQM or Total Quality Management, Six Sigma quality programs, and process re-engineering. And we're going to go through each of these in turn. The first is called best practice, and this is basically any method of performing an activity that consistently delivers superior results compared to other approaches. A best practice must have a proven record in things like either significantly lowering costs, improving quality of performance, shortening time requirements, enhancing safety, or delivering some other highly positive operating outcome. Obviously, if it doesn't do any of those or things similar to them, then it's not going to be a best practice. If you think about it, a best practice is only going to be the best if it helps your company do things better than your rivals, and they're common examples there. It also needs to be valuable and transferable, or to be rather valuable and transferable. A best practice must first of all demonstrate success over time. It can't just be a fluke sort of thing. It needs to deliver quantifiable and highly positive results and be repeatable. So it can't just be a once-off sort of thing. It needs to be the sort of thing that you can leverage across your entire organization. Now obviously we've included some excellent examples here of best practices. St Kilda, they do everything best practice, I would say. And Meyer Mustang, not surprisingly, is also an example of the best practice because it does everything the best. But as I say, in an organisational context at least, look for those things that do certainly any of these things on the left here, and that enable you to be better than your rivals. We can then look at a similar concept called benchmarking, which very much relates to best practice implementation. Engaging in benchmarking helps us identify the best practice for performing an activity, because benchmarking basically involves looking at your competitors and saying, okay, which of our rivals does each of the various value chain activities best? And remember, we talked about the value chain activities earlier in the semester. It involves breaking your organization down and saying, okay, who is the best at marketing? Who is the best at inbound logistics? Who is the best at operations? Who is the best at human resource management? And so on. You then, once you've identified who is the best in each of those areas, you then basically copy their ideas and adapt that best practice to fit your company's situation and implement that practice in your organization. It's not a once-off process though, benchmarking. You need to ensure that you are always adopting the best practices. You need to be constantly benchmarking yourself against either the best in the industry or potentially even the best in the world performers to ensure that what you perceive to be best practice is actually best practice relative to your rivals. This will then help you move closer to operating excellence in performing that activity. What we tend to find is that the more organisational units use best practices in performing their work, the closer a company moves towards performing its value chain activities as effectively and efficiently as possible. And as it says here, that is what excellent strategy execution and implementation is all about. Another strategy implementation policy or procedure is business process reengineering. And this is basically a radical redesigning and streamlining of the work effort, of the flows and processes within an organization to help achieve dramatic improvements in performance. Usually, if you're resorting to business process reengineering, there is an organization has identified a significant problem in at least one area. So for example, you might have undertaken benchmarking previously and gone, whoa, we are way, way, way off the pace when it comes to our HRM policies, and so we need to radically redesign the way that we do or conduct our business with regards to those HRM policies, and potentially even that entire department. It often uses cross-functional teams, cutting-edge technology, as well as information systems to reset and refocus the organisation's strategy. So it's a massive change. It's not the sort of thing where we just change one or two little things here and there. When you undertake business process reengineering, you're changing the whole approach to your business, or at least different parts of that business. Hopefully your efforts at business process reengineering will be more effective than our little feline friend here who I doubt will be able to fix the significant problems that we usually encounter when we need business process reengineering. On the other hand, and taking quite a different approach in terms of our strategy implementation, is the use of total quality management, or TQM. TQM basically involves creating a total quality culture. It is a mindset that is bent on continuously improving the performance of every task and value chain activity. It is the constant pursuit of perfection, basically. It's very much a long-term approach that doesn't necessarily have a finish. There's no endpoint for TQM, and in which success comes slowly in small steps forward, and it's linked to the Japanese principle of Kaizen, which is taking slow steps. Doesn't need to be a massive step forward like business process reengineering. It's just a constantly evolving, step-by-step process where we always aim to get better. We're never satisfied as a firm, especially with regards to our quality of our products. It emphasises things like continuous improvement, as I say, in all phases, not just one. As I say, business process reengineering is often focused on a particular part of the organisation, whereas TQM is a consistent approach across the entire organisation. It emphasises and aims for 100% accuracy in the performing of activities, and anything less is considered failure. Involvement and empowerment of employees at all levels is very much encouraged with TQM. It uses team-based work designs. Benchmarking is clearly going to be very important, otherwise you're not going to be able to tell have you achieved 100% accuracy. You need to be consistently checking and comparing yourself against the best practices, and also aims for total customer satisfaction. What you'll often find, and you can see just from looking at it, is that most of these ideas are often impossible to achieve. 100% accuracy in performing activities, you may never be able to achieve that, and total customer satisfaction the same. A lot of these things, they are ideals, but that's what TQM is all about, working towards these ideals of perfection across the entire organisation. And certainly my man Lenny Hayes here was a key part of helping St Kilda adopt a TQM practice. You may or may not agree with that, but I'm going to use that as my example. In a similar vein to TQM, we also have Six Sigma programs, and this is where we utilise statistical methods to improve the quality in our firms by reducing the number of defects and variability in business processes. So like TQM, we're aiming for basically, or very close, if not total perfection here. And it does require an entire shift in the mindset across the organisation. Six Sigma principles, first of all, that all work is a process. Secondly, that all processes will have variability, that you do need to accept while we're moving towards perfection, it is probably unrealistic and unachievable, and therefore that all processes will create data that explain that variability. So as you can see here in this illustration down the bottom, Six Sigma is very much in line with TQM in that it emphasises continuous improvement, incremental, ongoing improvements, whereas business process reengineering on the other side is a one-time, one-off quantum leap forward, basically. That's not to say either side of these approaches is wrong as such, but they are very different views towards achieving top-notch strategy execution, operating excellence, and strategy implementation. Finally, if you do as a firm decide that you want to go down the Six Sigma or TQM path towards that incremental improvement, then there are a number of steps that you can put in place, action steps in particular, very operational steps, to help utilize and realize the value of these initiatives. First of all, committing towards total quality and continuous improvement, making sure that it is an organization-wide approach towards being the best you can be, and especially with regards to quality and customer satisfaction. Also fostering quality supportive behaviours. If somebody comes up with an initiative, or if there is an idea that helps facilitate greater quality control, you need to be supportive of that as an organisation. Empowering all employees to improve quality, so that, for example, if you are a lower level manager or a lower level employee rather, and you notice a defect, that you feel that you can stand up and say, hey, this is not quite right, that we need to do something to improve this. Also using online systems to speed the adoption of best practices and emphasizing the necessity for improved performance all of the time. If you put into place some of these action steps, that will very much help your organization achieve either total quality management or a Six Sigma initiative.